Welcome to Men on Mission, a podcast brought to you by Men of the Kingdom. Our goal is to help encourage and equip men to live on mission for Christ 24/7. It's far too easy in our culture to sit back and to complain about the state of our world. But we believe that God calls the church to rise up and to take action, especially the men. With that, thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Men on Mission.
Morning, Mike.
Good morning.
Yeah, so we have Mike Springer with us today. Mike has been a good friend of mine back, I think, since 1999.
It's been a while.
It's
Good while.
Yeah, we've seen our families kind of grow up together.
Absolutely.
But Mike is an alumnus of St. Olaf.
I am.
St. Olaf College. He actually knew my wife back in college. Kind of a fun fact there. Mike's married to Marit and has 4 kids. And one of the unique things is that they are all born in different countries.
Wow.
So tell us a little bit about those kids.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. 4 children, 27, 24, 20, and 19.
How are they born in 4 different countries? That's a
2
unique-
biological, 2 adopted.
Okay.
So my eldest born here in the United States. I was working over in Switzerland for a couple of years when Lydia was born. And then we've adopted Peter from Korea and Sarah from China. And
Yeah.
so that's how we get our little mini United Nations, if you will, amongst our 4 kids.
And Caleb's your oldest.
He is. He's 27. Yes, he is.
And where's Caleb working now?
Well, he's in transition. He just got back from he's been working for Samaritan's Purse for about the past 5 years and spent about the past 4 years working mostly in Africa, over in Niger and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And so he has just recently returned, and he is in that transition period. So he'll be gainfully employed soon, I'm sure.
And Lydia's a nurse down in Chattanooga, Tennessee, one of my favorite towns.
She is. She got married here at Wooddale Edina last July. And so she and her husband live in Chattanooga, and she is a nurse in a children's hospital, and her husband works at a logistics company down there. So
Yeah, I enjoyed getting to know Peyton.
yes.
Yeah, great young guy. You'd like him a lot.
Cool. That's awesome.
And then Peter is down at Iowa State now.
Yeah, Peter is in Ames. He's actually going to come up here and live at home or in the Twin Cities for a little bit. He's going to take a little pause on school and kind of consider some options that he wants to pursue, and we're going to obviously be there to support him. And then number 4 is Sarah. She's at home, and she is 19, almost 20, and still in school over at Eden Prairie. So she'll be in school there for a couple more years.
So Peter's kind of exploring options, and you're exploring options as well this summer. You were with Medtronic for 30 years?
33 years.
33 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. 33 years with Medtronic, a few years in consulting before that, but a vast majority of my professional or working vocational career has been at Medtronic. Great place. Just very recently took an early retirement offer that was presented, and saw it as an opportunity for me to consider what I would like to do next for the next few years, and I'm feeling very blessed about that, and spending the summer in prayer and in research and investigating some of my options. So
Yeah. Well, so no matter where you've been, one thing I've always respected Mike is he lives with a kingdom vision, whether he's leading his family, whether at work, or whether he's involved in children's athletics. But one of the questions we like to ask when we kind of start the podcast is, how did you see God at work, in your mission field just over this last week?
yeah. Well, I'd like to talk about an area that I think's gone pretty well, and then just to be honest, some areas that you struggle in a little bit. And
Great.
when I think about this past week, and it might sound very basic, but it is extremely foundational for me in living on mission. And this past week, I have been very good about starting my day in the Word, starting my day in devotions, and really ground setting. And I find that when I do that, it really sets the table for me to be on mission throughout that day.
Okay.
If I don't do that, which can definitely happen, it isn't that I can't live on mission, but I just don't have that base, right, that I would like to work from. And so I think for the most part, I've just felt that it's been, let me put it this way. I was thinking about this the other day is, just as in James, we hear about being a Christian, about being faith and works, right? And that they both are important. When I think about being on mission, it's about both mindset and action. right?
Okay.
I mean, if I need to have the right mindset, and then the way that I get that mindset is through starting my day.
Right.
And if I have the right mindset throughout my day, I think that leads to action.
So what are you doing in your devotional time right now?
Yeah, the devotional time mostly is I read through a daily devotion. Susan Collins happens to be the one that I'm reading through right now. And along with that, then there are Bible verses that support that day's discussion or writing. And then I like not just go to that verse, but I like to kind of read the context around it, as I think is often
Wise.
important because it's good to see the words on the one verse, but I love to read a little before and after. And so I think about those things. It kind of helps those words maybe go in a little bit deeper. And it's a way for me to stay in the word as well under that kind of a structure. So that's happens to be what I'm doing right now. And that I like it because it gives me new thoughts and it gets me in the word at the same time.
Right. And then you said you have something that maybe wasn't going as well.
Well, when I say not going as well, I guess it's just being honest about, we all have struggles and things where we want to improve and see if we can even be better or more on mission. And I've been in a lot of transitions lately, transitioning from my work. We just talked about my 33 plus years at Medtronic. We're doing some transitions in terms of our home and our real estate. I have children who are in transition. I mentioned Caleb from Africa, now back in the States. I could keep listing these different transitions. And in all of that, there's been a lot that's been changing. And I'm a very control person. I like to plan. I like to know what's going to happen. And I found that as exciting as the transitions are, I don't have the control that I feel like I've had over the years. I've had a lot of consistency. I've been able to
One job,
plan things.
33
One
years.
job, where we're going to church. We've lived in the same home for 27 years and, those kinds of things. And so it's all exciting, but I'm still holding somewhat tightly to the control side. And I'm not sure that's exactly right. I'd like to be able to even trust the Lord further, to just planning. Yes, I think we're called to use our brains and to do what we can to plan for the future and our finances and all other areas of our lives. But at some point, we just give it up to the Lord, and then He's got it and let it go. So I'm getting there, but it's a bit of a personality trait if I have, and I think all these different transitions have kind of made those bubble up a little bit more,
Sure.
and so I'm working on it.
Yeah. How does the dependable Mike Springer respond in an undependable environment?
Yeah,
Yeah.
lack of predictability or less predictability. Is just a new experience for me. Yeah. So I guess I should view it as an opportunity as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, I don't know you super well, but even just in our short time together, it seems like you're probably type A, and you're definitely a leader. And I know that for me personally, just being type A, being a leader, like when you're in a season like you are, it definitely makes it way harder to let go of some of that control and to trust the Lord. So it's awesome that you're leaning into it and that you're aware of it. Even if it is the thing that you're struggling with this last week, I think it's awesome that you're leaning in and not away.
Yeah, and I appreciate the comment, and I think the awareness part is important, and that's why I don't mind talking about it, because I think when you can kind of feel that about yourself, or you just have the cognitive ability to think about it and to address it and say, how do I do this maybe a little bit differently, or how, do I need to call on the Lord in a different way maybe, or ask Him to just calm me down a little bit. And so anyway, it's a time of transition. It's a good thing. I don't mean to like paint a challenging picture, but I can see myself from the inside, but also even just a little bit from the outside. And I go, no, not quite there yet.
Yeah. How would you describe your mission field today? I know it's changing because you're going through this repurposing of your life.
Yeah.
But what if you looked at your week, month, or coming season of life?
Right.
How would you describe your mission field?
Yeah, good question. And I think I might answer it in two different ways. The first is if I think back over the years, I know we're talking about more recently, but just to kind of give some perspective, I have in some ways compartmentalized my life a bit. And I remember from years ago when I was a younger Christian, I would go to work, and work was about work, and sure, be nice to the people around you, but that was work. You go to the store, well, that's about shopping, and I'm going to go shopping, and yeah, I should smile every once in a while and be a good person, and that was about shopping. I'm going to drive to go somewhere. Sure, I'm going to try to be a good driver. I'm not going to try to cut anybody off. I'm going to do what I will, et cetera, right? So the point is, I would view all of those things kind of as individual or compartmentalized things. And I, for a long time, did not think of those necessarily as a mission field. I would say over the past decade plus, I have changed in how I think about that. And I realized, yes, the work is my mission field. And sure, I'm going to not only be nice to people, but I might encourage them. I might offer them some words that might be of something they can think about or what have you. You go to the store, right? You go to the checkout line. It's a smile, but maybe it's also some kind words. It's a way to kind of lift up their day. I had an experience last week. My wife and I joke about the world's slowest McDonald's drive-through line. And we have one particular store up in northern Minnesota, or franchise that we go to sometimes. And I did experience it again. It is the world's slowest McDonald's drive-through line, or so it seems, when you're sitting there, right? So it's really easy to get agitated, and that affects how you impact the person on the intercom, and that takes your money, and that gives you your food, and then you have to pull around to spot number 2 and wait for them to come out and bring your food to you, and then you interact with that person. And I just know over the years I've been pretty impatient sometimes in those cases. And in this case, I wasn't. And I felt the Lord saying, you know what, this is just the way it goes. It's interesting how that works, because as I got my food delivered in my, go wait and spot number 2 thing, I realized that there were a lot of special needs people that were on shift during that particular time. And they were all working, which is awesome, right? And I'm not saying it because they're special needs, it took longer, but I wanted to have a different sense about it. And it just is really easy, in life. You get caught up in what's going on, and we don't have any idea what's going on in everybody else's life, what's happening. And so that was just another experience I had last week where once I saw some of the people, and I was like, oh, I'm really glad I didn't just, get really impatient or treat people rudely and things. So I think a long story way of saying is I've just learned every interaction in your everyday is part of your mission field, right? And it's an opportunity to impact people's lives in small ways, and who knows, the way Lord works, sometimes maybe even lead to bigger ways. But what I wanted to tell you about is I do feel, that's in general across your life, right. I do feel that God has called me to move forward on mission in a couple of specific areas. And this is a bit of a transition. I mentioned a couple of you earlier that I have a passion for my Christian faith, for kids, and for athletics. And so as I think about mission moving forward, there's a couple of things that I have in mind. I have a passion, and I want to be on mission for vulnerable families. I have worked with some. I am familiar with organizations where there are families that are at risk of being separated, and they need some help. I want to be there to work with them, and I can talk more about that if you will. I have, as I think we mentioned at the beginning, adopted 2 children, and I've served on the board of directors of a large international adoption agency who also does family strengthening, child sponsorships, and those kinds of things.
What group is that?
Yeah, Holt International.
Okay.
Yeah, Holt International, they're out in Oregon, and incredible organization. They actually are the founders, or the fathers, if you will, of international adoption, dating back into the 1950s, post-Korean War, where there were a lot of children over in Korea that had American GI fathers and Korean mothers, and unfortunately did not have very good opportunities back in Korea. Just some of the cultural issues that were faced there. And so Mr. Holt actually saw that need and ended up figuring out how to get these kids homes, and that kind of founded this whole idea about helping children find homes. So, but Holt International, and so I've just seen the work how important it is for kids, and for kids who are orphans who might be in need good orphan care, good foster care, whatever the case might be. I've seen that my 2 children coming out of different experiences, both very difficult and traumatic, but good temporary care versus orphan care that sometimes isn't of the highest quality can make incredible differences in people's lives. So I just have a passion in my heart to want to work with at-risk kids and vulnerable families, also with orphans. And so I see those particular areas, and then just continuing with my family. That's the third, area of passionate about in terms of trying to live on mission. And family kids go through all kinds of changes. Dean, I know you and I did a study where we looked at how you parent well with your kids as they get older, and things change, and how do you just kind of keep alongside them and always keep the door open. And I just want to be really always on mission with them, because I think that's a part and parcel of responsibility of mine, and something that I really enjoy. So
Yeah, I can see a theme developing.
Okay.
From your earlier life, where situations, whether it was work or driving or the store, where people were a means to your ends. And I can see this transition here, where you're seeing people as more ends rather than a means, because they're made in the image of God. Is there any influence or what kind of helped trigger that transition to how you're going to view other people?
Yeah.
Especially from your Christian faith perspective, I think that really informs how we're going to interact with people. Are they there to serve me, or am I there to serve them?
Yeah.
Because they're worthy.
Well, absolutely. Great question. I don't know that I have an exact sort of, here's the formula.
A seminal moment.
Part of it, I think, is just for me, has been a maturation of faith. And, just also, though, I would say that I have seen that type of behavior in some other people, which has been motivating for me. And so
There's some people that you might point to?
Yeah, I can. Well, I have one good friend who's and not named Dean Stinchfield, but another good friend. His name, and I got his okay to use his name. So yeah, his name's Mike Miller, and he is a great guy. And I say a great guy in that he's very much on mission, and I've seen him on mission in everything that he does. He's on mission as a wealth advisor. He's on mission at church. He's on mission in baseball. He's on mission in his family. He's on mission in studies that he helps conduct. And I see it in how he interacts, in the texts that he sends on Father's Day, even though I'm, just to kind of lift people up. I've seen in just how he interacts with people. And that has always been a bit of an inspiration. And it has felt like a little bit of an unattainable for me, because not to lift him up too high, because he would hate that. But the point is, he does things very well in that regard. And I've wanted to be more like that. And I think now, as I've gotten a little bit older, I'm also most recently, and even over this summer with my vocational change, it's helped me to slow down a little bit. And even slowing down and not like thinking I got to get to this place this fast and I've got to do this has really helped me to do that, to kind of focus on people, focus on just what it is to be a Christian and live that out. And I know people are at different phases of life. Sometimes they're more hectic. Sometimes it's not as hectic. But man, if you can have that kind of mindset, regardless of what phase you are in life, that would be awesome. So I would say that, that is an individual who's really helped me to see people in a little bit different way. I think also there's a couple of people, they're more leaders, kind of Christian leaders who, and writers and of organizations that have helped me to kind of just view things a little bit. And I would point to the former CEO and leader of World Vision, Richard Stearns. Some people may know him. He wrote a book called A Hole in the Gospel, which is very much just asking people to be of action in terms of just identifying some of the needs around the world. And we need people to jump in and to do things and not just pray for people, but to get involved.
Don't be passive, right?
Yeah, don't be passive.
No passive.
So that's one person that I've just admired. I don't know, obviously, but the other is Gary Haugen. He is the founder of International Justice Mission, and I found him to be really motivating. I mean, to identify injustices around the world and to have the courage and the chutzpah and whatever else it needs to take on some of these things and be a man of action. So I think, they see people, the way that they come to this perspective is they see people as God would, right? As important. Yes, they might be in another country, they might be who knows what their circumstances and situation is, but they saw something and they took action, in some ways. So those are a couple different people. And then I guess the other area I was reflecting on a little bit is also just being willing to listen to God in your everyday experiences. And if you get a little nudging, maybe it might be to say something to somebody or go up to someone that you weren't planning on interacting with, to just listen to that. And as I think about a couple of Old Testament prophets, I want to be more like Jeremiah than I do Jonah. And not that there's anything wrong with Jonah, obviously he got a message from God that he did not want to hear and ran away, and even eventually speaking to the Ninevites, not probably with a real happy heart, kind of just following through. Jeremiah, on the other hand, he was given a hard calling, right? He was told, you're not going to have a family, you're not going to get married, and I'm going to have you talk to these rebellious, Israelites and deliver these hard messages. And he ran, he didn't run. He actually, he followed the Lord's commands. He did what he wanted to. And he said, I wrote down in Jeremiah 27 that I'm ridiculed all day long. Everyone mocks me. But he stayed true to the word. And so anyway, just a few thoughts.
Good thoughts.
Yeah, no, they're awesome thoughts. A lot of the people that you're mentioning and that you've really learned from are just biblical men who exhibit one of those 5 Ps that we talk about in Men of the Kingdom a lot. You're talking about Gary Haugen and the leader for World Vision, and even whole international, and like all these men are displaying one of the 5 Ps, whether it's a provider seeing a need and then meeting that need, or seeing a hurt or somebody in trouble and danger and then being a protector and creating a safe place for them. And so it's cool to see how you learning from them has then impacted you. How have you seen, as you begin to apply some of these different roles of biblical leadership or even just taking action, how have you seen it impact your mission field, either with your family or previously when you were working with Medtronic?
I've seen it in a couple different ways. I had a couple of years ago, I had an opportunity to travel, and I was over in Ethiopia and had a chance to, of all things, it was really cool. I had a chance to, my wife and I sponsor several children just because that's something we feel strongly about and we enjoy doing. I had a chance to meet with a couple of them while I was over in Ethiopia, Nega and Yisak. And it was incredible to actually meet them face to face. In one case, I remember I met the father. In another case, of father and the child. In another case, it was the child and a brother because of different family situations. But just to be able to see, even that kind of thing where you feel like you're maybe distant, we are distant, but also just not involved in their lives necessarily every day, and to get their sense of gratitude and how their lives are positively impacted. And this is just an example of where it's financially,
What a gift.
You're doing it. But what a gift it was to us,
That's
to me.
what I mean. What a gift.
And that
to
I
see
could then
that.
bring back to actually see it. And, it's more than a picture on a refrigerator, so to speak. That's great. That is great. But it was a person. It is a person created in God's image, someone who we've been able to positively impact. So when you mention John, just, some of these different people and different men, seeing in my own experience what was going on with these couple of kids, it was just really motivating. It's like my own ability, and then makes you want to do more of it, makes you want to see people in that way. And that was over in Ethiopia, but later today I'll be who knows where. Can I see someone sort of through those same eyes? And that's what I'm looking to do. I think you mentioned Medtronic and my number of years there, and I think that, oh man, it's easy. I felt a little Jonah-like for a while, right? In that you see people and you're just like, I don't want to deal with that, or I don't want to interact. That's a challenging personality, or that person is. I'd rather walk the other direction, whatever the case might be. I cannot say that I perfected that, but I tried to be a little bit more Jeremiah-ish in those cases where I thought, okay, that's not an easy calling as I'm hearing it, to feel a sense of, yeah, I want you to go talk to those people, or I want you to go sit at lunch with that group of people, or you might not necessarily choose to do so only because of just some differences of life views or whatever the case might be. But sometimes you do, right? And you do, and you just go be kind, offer some words, encourage, and I learned to do that more. So I want to be careful that I'm not pitting Jeremiah versus Jonah, because I don't mean to like rank prophets, but it's more about sort of how do you respond to a tough situation, or what you might hear as, like, I'll say, a tough calling, or a tough instruction, or a tough nudge from the Holy Spirit, and where you're thinking, nah, I wouldn't choose to do that.
Yeah, just to be aware of that, I think, is so important. You know, in our culture right now, there's kind of this cone of silence. Like, even if you have some kind of truth from God's word to speak up, whether it's encouragement or just pointing to a truth, you know, the culture has this cone of silence trying to, you know, just let it go.
Right.
Don't engage in this moment. But there's a tension when you feel that nudge from the Holy Spirit. And do you respond?
Right.
Because in every situation, you've got about a 10 to 15 second window to respond. And if you don't respond in that moment, you've missed your moment.
Right.
So
No,
I
you're
really
right.
that's that prophetic calling. It's one of the 5 Ps we talk about.
Yeah.
Can you be a prophet to just describe the truth of the Lord at that point and point people to a higher calling or a higher truth?
Yeah.
And the fact that you've noticed that, and now you're continuing to live that out, whether at Medtronic or
And that's where I think mindset is really important, as I mentioned at the beginning, kind of getting yourself set at the beginning of the day. Because as you say, if you do have that window, some sort of a window of opportunity, it might not be a great time. Well, okay, now I got to get my mind in the right place. I got to get myself focused on the Lord. I'm going to make sure the Holy Spirit's on the tip of my tongue and the front of my brain. Now, just because you do something in the morning doesn't mean it stays throughout the day, right? I mean, it needs a little bit of refreshing, but it definitely can help. And I think if you have that mindset, then you might maybe jump on that opportunity maybe a little faster before it literally disappears.
Yeah, well, it's like your love for athletics, right? You got to run scout team. You got to prepare for that moment. So when you see the linebacker filling the hole,
You know what to do.
you're prepared.
Yeah, and the last thing I'd say on that is just in proper humility, I'm not perfect at it. I mean, this is still a work in process, right? What I've just have appreciated, I've noticed how God is working in my life to get me better in that regard.
Right.
You know, earlier where I just wouldn't engage. Well, now I'm engaging. Well, down the road, maybe he'll kind of keep on developing me.
Right. But that's the process of maturity, like in growing into biblical manhood. And I think what you described, that tension between Jonah and Jeremiah, or that tension between being passive and not saying something versus taking action and stepping up and answering the call that God's put on your heart in that moment. That's the tension that a lot of men feel, and that we all feel, that I feel, that a lot of people listening to this podcast feel day after day, week after week. And it's learning how to navigate that tension and to be obedient in that moment that we all struggle with. Because if the enemy can keep us from being obedient in that moment, then he's going to be having a good day. Whereas if we choose to take action, if we choose to walk in obedience, if we choose to answer the call that God's given us and be on mission everywhere we go, we're advancing his kingdom and we're pushing back Satan. So that's the exciting thing.
That's a good day.
That's the challenge.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's pissing the devil off. And
Which is another part of a good day.
yeah, that's part of my mission here, right? So let's go.
Yeah.
Trying to think what the acronym there, if it's appropriate.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I know.
I have to think what those letters are.
Maybe not the
We'll have
the
to work
best
with it a little
term,
bit. But I like it. I like the heart behind it.
Yeah. So.
But Mike, you talked about earlier in our conversation, examples that inspired you. I think our conversation today, you've given a really clear vision of what it looks like to be a man on mission. I think you'll inspire many people. I think this will echo for many generations forward if people will listen and just appreciate some of your wisdom. But if you could talk to those groups that maybe have been moved by your testimony, and what advice would you give a man to really live out his mission?
Wow. Well, great question, great opportunity to put a couple words out here. But I think I would start with try not to be too discouraged or get down on yourself if you're kind of working your way there. You know, I mean, you don't go from not thinking about this stuff too much to I'm on mission, and now I'm on mission, 24/7. So allow yourself to at times realize that was a missed opportunity, or, oh, I wish I would have done something differently. So that's just a way to start, because we were just talking about the enemy. And I think he uses discouragement as one of his main tools, because, I messed up. I'm not good at
Well,
this.
a lot of times as men, the thing God calls us to is action. When we don't take action, or when we are passive, or when we mess up, or when we fail, even if we take action and we fail, we internalize that failure.
Yeah, we do.
And we make it a personality trait.
Part of our identity.
Or part of our identity instead of a mistake.
There was
hell.
I know, Dean, you enjoyed the Twins. I noticed there was a quote the other day. The pitcher, Pablo Lopez, did a complete game shutout.
5-0.
And, well, you do know. And his quote afterwards kind of stuck with me a little bit. That when he was interviewed, he said, "We fail so much." And he's talking about baseball, obviously, but I think it has a little corollary meaning. Is we fail so much that, and we tend to not want to celebrate our successes at all. He said, "I just did my first in my career complete game shutout, and it's time to celebrate a little bit, because the world is all about focusing on the failures, right?" And in baseball, of course, you're lucky if you hit whatever, 250, right? That means you're getting out 750 and pitching if you have a low ERA. But the point is just, yes, it's so easy to internalize the failures, and then that to lead to not only discouragement, but then you don't take that step the next time. And it's just about learning. So I guess that's one thing, is just try not to be too discouraged. But I think the other thing is, well, I guess I have two more things as it comes to my mind. One is we talked about the compartmentalization. So just try to view your life as a whole. I know that's a big part of of Men of the Kingdom, right? Is to getting people to understand that every part of your life, every part of your day, you can be on mission. You should strive to be on mission, and it's an opportunity. So I discussed earlier how I used to compartmentalize my life a lot more and think about okay, this is a church thing, or this is a God thing, but this is a work thing, and that's a store thing, and whatever. And yes, it is, but no, it isn't, right? It's all part of the kingdom, and it's all part of your day, which means it's all part of your opportunity. And so to do that. And then I would just say, it doesn't even have to be vocationally, but just what are you passionate about? What are you interested in? What is it not hard for you to get excited about? And that may be something that you end up vocationally, or it may not, right? It may be in my world, the way that I fed these desires and passion I have for my faith and kids and athletics and orphans and vulnerable families is, I did that through volunteerism, right? I did that through how you might dedicate some of your resources. And I had a good career, but that wasn't necessarily the place that I was always passionate about. But I guess what I'm encouraging people is God will use you, whether it's vocation or outside of your vocation, if you are available. And so some people find themselves in a work where they think this isn't much of a mission field, but first of all, it is. I know that would be the strong words there. But I also have other areas that I'm passionate about. Well, get involved and think about being in mission in those areas. Volunteer, spend time, your non-work time. I guess that's what I would advise.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, one of the things we say in Men of the Kingdom is God plus one is a majority, and every believer is filled with resurrection power. And now feel free to unleash that and live it out.
God plus one is a majority. I like
in
that.
every situation. Sometimes you feel you're outnumbered.
Yeah.
But God plus one's a majority.
You're always
So attack.
the favorite.
Every time. 100%.
I like that. Hadn't thought of those words, but yeah, I like that.
Yeah, but I think you've evidenced that in your life.
Yeah. Thanks so much for just sharing and taking time to be a testimony to other men on how they can live on mission.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate it.
Okay.